Let's open the step 2 bag and see what's inside. Be careful when you open the bag so you don't open anything else inside of here. Just let's cut the top off the bag. Take out the contents. You'll notice each individual component has been sealed away from one another. The hardware is separate. Here's your mast collar, your main shaft sleeve, and then this is, of course, your auto unit, and then these are your main gears and tail drive gears. Let's get on to seeing where these components go. In step 2-1 on this side of the page, you will notice you need to locate 1 177 tooth main gear, 1 auto unit, and 5 2x6mm socket cap screws. To complete the assembly, we will be using a 1.5mm handled driver. Be careful not to over-tighten any of the screws into plastic, and don't use any Loctite on screws going into plastic as well. Let's put this together and see what it looks like. After completing step 2-1, this is basically what you should have. When I assemble an auto unit and I put a main gear on it, I like to tighten the screws in a cross pattern, slowly but surely, just kind of snugging them down across from one another, so that I can help alleviate any distortion that may be in the gear. If you tighten them real tightly, just all the way around, there is a possibility you will get screws tighter on one side than the other and wind up distorting the gear, and it will actually have a wobble to it. Once you get them nice and snug down, there's really no reason to tighten them any further than that. We can take that right there and set it off to the side, and let's move on with the next step. In step 2-2, on this side of the page, you will notice you need to locate the auto unit sleeve, the tail drive gear adapter, which is actually already slipped into the 100 tooth tail drive gear. You will need to look for the 2x16mm shank screw and the M2 lock nut. To complete this assembly, we will be using a 1.5mm handled driver. This portion of the assembly is actually important to make it less frustrating to get to the next part, and I'll show you exactly what this looks like when it's actually put together. So let's do that now. After you've put all this together, basically all you're doing is you're lining the holes up for the auto unit sleeve, the actual tail drive gear adapter, and the actual gear itself. You're slipping the nut in right here and keeping it in place, and then threading this screw through until it engages the gear, this sleeve, and this sleeve together so that they can't move around. You'll take your main shaft and verify that you can go in nice and smooth. That'll help alleviate any aggravation as you try to get it through the frames. So let's put this in the model and see what it looks like. In step 2-3, we will be installing the drive gears into the main frames. You can see on this side of the page you will need to locate a 5mm main shaft, the main shaft collar, and 1 3x3mm set screw. To do the assembly, we will use a 1.5mm handled driver and blue Loctite for the set screw. You will not need to use Loctite on the screw that goes through the main shaft, as the nut is a lock nut. Now let's put this together and I'll show you how easy it is to get this all together. After installing the drive gears into the model, take the main shaft, put the long portion where it's the longest from the hole down, and point that down and put it through the bearing blocks and all the way to the bottom. You can use this hole right here in the main shaft as a gauge to whether or not these two are lined up. And basically what you're going to do is, once this bolt is lined up with the hole in the main shaft, you can just push this in there and go ahead and turn it all the way through until it's all the way through to the other side. Be sure when you do that not to push out your lock nut that's on the other side here. Because if you push out your lock nut, it can make it a little frustrating trying to get this done. After we get this done, you get this pushed through and tightened nice and securely, we'll move on to the mast collar. After the drive gears have been installed in the model and the lower bolt has been tightened securely, it's time to put the main shaft collar on the model. If you'll notice, the main shaft collar has a step in it. This step points down towards the top bearing. Apply a small amount of Loctite to the set screw, then slide the main shaft collar over the main shaft. You're going to pull up on the main shaft and push down on the collar and tighten the set screw securely, and make sure that there is no up and down play when you're done. Let's get that all taken care of and move on to the next step. After the mast collar has been installed, verify that your set screw is securely tight and that you have no up and down play in the shaft. After you have no up and down play in the shaft, it's time to move on to putting the mixing system together, so let's get that swash plate out.